Hello.
He's Ken.
She's Lauren.
And this is Paradise After Dark.
Dark.
Paradise After Dark is an independent podcast covering true crime,
Unsolved mysteries,
missing people,
and urban legends.
If you would like to support our little show and get a bunch of extra Paradise After Dark content, plus early and ad-free releases on all of our episodes, please sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALMAHAWK Media.
And be sure to check out our website at paradiseafterdark.com.
On our website, you'll find links to all of our episodes, even the archived ones, our mailing list, merch store, links to our social medias, and of course our Patreon.
And we also have a virtual tip jar there where if you leave us a little tip, we'll give you a shout out on the show. Kind of like Bob E. from Terre Haute, Indiana. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
We've also got Brian from Orlando, Florida.
Ooh, close to home.
That is close to home. And Christina from Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. That's such a huge city. Do you know every street in Atlanta, Georgia is Peachtree Street? I swear to God it is.
So everybody that we just mentioned went to paradiseafterdark.com and left us a tip in the tip jar, and we really appreciate that. Thank you guys for supporting the show.
And even if you don't want to leave a tip, hit us up on social media, send us a message, send us an email.
Say what up.
Say what up. You know, if you want to go and just kind of give us a case suggestion or something like that, or talk about a case, please do. I mean, we're here. That's what we do.
And again, we will be at CrimeCon this year in Las Vegas, April 30th through May 1st.
Can't wait.
And if you haven't gotten your ticket yet, go ahead and use promo code PARADISE for 10% off.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love to meet some of our listeners there and just hang out and just talk about whatever. I'm so excited about Vegas.
It's always a good time. CrimeCon is always a good time. And this year it's in Vegas. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Stoked. I'm stoked just to go see some of our other friends that we have in the podcast world. It's wonderful.
Speaking of our friends, we're going up to Ohio this month to hang out with our friends Nick and Captain from the True Crime Garage podcast. They are doing a live event on Saturday, February 19th at 6 p.m. at the Dog Tap Brewery. Dog Tap Brewery. In Columbus, Ohio. That's right, Columbus, Ohio. And if you'd like to attend this event, you can get tickets at truecrimegarage.com. Yeah, and we'll be there.
We'll be there, and Ken had to go buy a special jacket just to go to Columbus, Ohio this time of year because,
yeah, it's going to be a big culture shock for Ken.
It is. Well, it's been a really long time since I've seen snow, so I got to be honest with you. I'm not excited to see it again.
All right. But we are excited to see Nick and Captain and be at their live event.
Exactly. I just don't like the cold. That's all. That's all I was getting.
Well, it's okay. You can handle it for one weekend.
I think I can handle it. I think I'll be able to get it. So, Lauren, tonight, this episode that we're going to do it's kind of gut-wrenching in a lot of ways, but very mysterious again. Another mysterious case that ends in just awful tragedy. So why don't you go ahead with kind of get us started on tonight's episode.
Okay, well, this week we are covering the case of the Mcstay family. In February of 2010, less than 3 months after Joseph and Summer McStay moved with their 2 young sons from San Clemente to Fallbrook, California, they disappeared without a trace. Not a lot is known about Joseph and Summer McStay from before they moved to Fallbrook, a community known as the Friendly Village. But some of the things we do know are a little odd about this family. So, Joseph McStay was born on November 20th, 1969 in Akron, Ohio, to Patrick McStay and Susan Blake. Joseph had one older brother named Michael. And as we mentioned, Joseph and his family had just moved to Fallbrook, California, and he opened and operated Earth Inspired Products, a company that built decorative fountains.
Just to kind of clarify that, what he did, because this kind of plays into sort of what happens. He basically was selling these fountains, and he was so excited he was selling the fountains, and then he called his father and he said, "Hey, I can build these fountains. I can make all this money. I can do this." And so he decided he's going to go out on his own, and instead of selling these fountains, he was actually going to build them. So, of course, he got the right people surrounding him, working with him and for him to produce these fountains. And he developed this company called Earth Inspired Products. And that kind of got him up and running. And it's kind of important that because the people surrounding him in the company kind of play out into this case.
Well, Summer McStay was born December 27th, 1966 in Los Angeles, California, to Blanche Almanza and father unknown. Her name at birth was Virginia Lisa Aranda. Summer had been known by a number of names. Like we said, born Virginia Lisa Aranda, she had also been known as Summer Martelli, Summer Aranda-Martelli, Lisa Aranda, Lisa Martelli, and Lisa Aranda Martelli. In an early video interview, Summer's mother confirmed that Martelli was the surname of Summer's stepfather, but it was later alleged to have been invented by Summer. Family members insisted that the name change were only a facet of Summer's eccentric personality. After the McStays went missing, Summer's mother-in-law discovered Summer was actually 11 years older than she claimed to be. Summer's reasons for changing her name and age remain unclear. If Summer had reasons for altering her identity, she never disclosed any of that to her surviving friends or family members. But we have to know this. I think it's important to know this background information on Summer because it is a little odd. Like, how many people change their name and change their age by 11 years? I mean, her mother-in-law, which would be Joseph McStay's mother, finds out that her daughter-in-law is 11 years older than she's supposed to be, and then has had all these different aliases in the past. It's just a little off.
It is a little off. And keep in mind that Joseph was married prior to marrying Summer, and of course they split up. They were together, and there were some issues, and then they split up. And then, because he has a child from a previous marriage.
Right.
So these are the things that we know at this point. But getting up to February 4th of 2010, now this was a Thursday, and on that day, Joseph, he was 40 years old, he had a business meeting in Rancho Cucamonga about one of the fountains his company, Earth Inspired Products, was building. Now Summer, who, as we know now, was 43, she was at home with her two boys, Gianni, who was 4, and Joey, who was 3. He was known as Chubba, and the two dogs, Bear and Digger. Now, Summer spoke on the phone with her sister, who had just had a baby and made plans for a visit. On the afternoon, at a Ross store in Vista, Summer's credit card was used to buy beach towels, infant pajamas, and a jacket. And then Summer and Joseph, they text each other around 5 p.m. on this day. And at 7:47, a surveillance camera at the neighbor's home shows the family's Isuzu Trooper leaving the cul-de-sac they lived in. Now, I've seen a lot of stuff online where people were so upset because the neighbor's camera didn't pick up, anything. The camera couldn't quite make out who was driving because it only caught the bottom 18 inches of the vehicle, but it didn't show who was in it. And it's like, they're not trying to catch people driving by. They're trying to protect their property or view their property. So it's kind of like the video, a lot of times there's missing people, but, they say, well, how could they walk down the street and no cameras picked them up? It's like, because most cameras aren't trying to figure out who's on the street. They're trying to figure out who's in the store or in the lobby, things like that. So I just saw there was a lot of aggravation. Like, I can't believe they didn't get that. They're not trying to figure out people driving by. And that brings us to 8:28 p.m. And a Fallbrook cell phone tower pings Joseph's phone. Now, he makes a call to his business associate in Rancho Cucamonga, Charles Chase Merritt, to talk about work. And then nothing from his cell phone. That's it. Goes dark. Nothing else.
So February 5th and 6th, friends and family call and send repeated texts to the couple and get no response. By February 8th, the family's white 1996 Isuzu Trooper was found parked illegally in a strip mall near San Ysidro, adjacent to the Mexican border. Security guards later told investigators that it may have been parked there sometime between 5:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. I'm assuming that this is on February 8th that the Isuzu Trooper was parked there. It was impounded at the time as an abandoned vehicle. 2 child seats were buckled in place inside the vehicle, and there was also some asthma medication in a plastic container on the floor. One of the children had asthma, and they would carry this, I guess, I'm assuming it's an inhaler, with them everywhere they went. So that was kind of not a good sign that, the car seats are still in the car and then the inhaler or asthma medication is still in the car.
Yeah, you would assume that if they had the children with them, they would take that out of the car.
Right.
So,
they would take that with them wherever they were.
Exactly. So this brings us to February 10th. Now, in response to requests from Joseph's business partner, Chase Merritt, now he was the last person to speak to Joseph McStay on the phone the evening of February 4th. So he calls the San Diego County Sheriff's deputies and asks them to conduct a welfare check on the McStay home. So the deputies show up. They do not go inside, and they say, hey, there's no signs of foul play. So there's no forced entry. The doors are locked. They peek in the windows. They don't see anybody, and nothing is really out of the ordinary. Now, what we do know is that Chase had a conversation with Joseph's brother. Now, he had said, hey, I went to the house, and the dogs are out, and I don't see anybody there. They're in the backyard. And he goes like, okay. So the brother's like, okay, well, let's wait a little while, and we'll figure this out. And then so Chase goes back and says, okay, well, nothing has happened. The dogs are still out. So we're going to need to call the police and do a welfare check. Let's get them here, because him and his brother had spoke.
So February 13th, Joseph's brother Michael goes to the McStay home and enters through an open window to search for the family. There's no one inside the home, and the dogs are still in the backyard. Neighbors said they had been feeding the dogs, but heard nothing from the family. There are eggs open on the kitchen counter and 2 bowls of popcorn sitting on the living room couch. Summer's prescription glasses are also found in the house. There was no sign of forced entry or struggle, but it appeared as if the family had left in a hurry.
Yeah, that's not a good sign when you see that, because it looks like they just rushed out of the home. So on February 15th, the family members report the McStays missing to San Diego County Sheriff's Department. And on February 19th, 4 days later, homicide investigators searched the McStay home. It took a while for them to get the warrants, and one of the frustrating things in this particular case was that when the brother showed up, he knew something wasn't right. So he actually spoke, he called the police, and they talked to him, and then they said, it's not a crime scene. We've already had somebody out there. They're not finding any signs of foul play. We're trying to get warrants to do this. So as they're going for the warrants, he says, well, what am I supposed to do? He says, you can do whatever you want. He goes, well, there's a computer here. There's this. I'm going to go through this computer, and I'm going to try to find my brother. And they said, well, you can do whatever you want. It's not a crime scene. And so there's actually footage of an interview that his brother did as he's doing this documentary talking about this case, where he says, the detective said, you can do whatever you want. It's not a crime scene. So they never put their foot down. So detectives kind of are off on the wrong start here. But Michael takes it upon himself to take the laptop home and go through it to try to find his brother. And then we go ahead now. The homicide investigators are there. Now they've got the warrants. And then on the 19th, so this is 6 days after Michael had been in the home, and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and search this house. We may have a crime scene here.
So investigators quickly determined that the family was not at the home. Duh.
Yeah, right.
And it did not appear that the family had planned to be gone for long. For example, as we just mentioned, the food was left out. No arrangements had been made for the care of the dogs. In fact, deputies went so far as to say that the totality of the circumstances surrounding their disappearance was quite out of character for the family. At this point, we haven't found anything that would suggest that they would have any problems with anyone, or there was any involvement in narcotics trafficking or anything of that nature that would really point us in any particular direction. Now, this is where we need to kind of keep in the back of our minds where this is. This is Southern California. This is very close to the Mexican border. There's narcotics trafficking. There's firearms trafficking. There's human trafficking. All that kind of stuff going on in that area. So that's just something that we got to keep in the back of our mind.
And the sheriff's office obviously is aware of this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So although there were no signs of foul play, the case was quickly handed over to homicide detectives. It doesn't make sense, which is why we're involved. Lieutenant Dennis Brugos of the sheriff's homicide detail told NBC San Diego.
Well, the San Diego County Sheriff's Department did contact a liaison in Baja California, Mexico, and asked for a search of airports, bus stations, and any of the other major travel hubs. Remember, like Lauren said, we're talking about this little section of Mexico that is real easy to get in and out of. I've seen stories where people used to go down there in Baja California and they would drink, get drunk in this little section of Mexico and come back, over the border because you could go down there and drink at any age. So this is a real odd area. So you have to take that into consideration. Now, because the family's vehicle was found so close to the Mexican border, detectives notified Interpol to be on the lookout for the McStay family who might be traveling into Mexico. Obviously, you find the vehicle there. You're like, okay, well, we have to start putting these puzzle pieces together and see what's going on because so far we've searched the home and we're not seeing anything out of the ordinary. We just know the family's missing. Yes, some of the way the layout of the house was not conducive.
It looked like they left in a hurry.
Yeah, it wasn't conducive to anything that was wrong. Again, no foul play noted. Now, March 5th of 2010, a video released by deputies show images of a group of people that did look similar to the McStay family going hand in hand into Mexico through the pedestrian gate. Now, the video was discovered by volunteers from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children who scoured hours of border surveillance tape. So they're trying to find something here because, again, we have the vehicle parked close. The video is dated around 7 p.m. on February 8th. Now, this is the same day that the family's white Isuzu Trooper was found illegally parked at the nearby strip mall. Bottom of the left corner of the video, you can see a man walking hand in hand with a child, and following him is a woman in a white jacket holding the hand of another child. Obviously, this would be sort of that family unit, because it's a younger child, it's an older child, man, woman.
Right.
San Diego County Sheriff's investigators said the people in the video could potentially be Joseph McStay and his wife Summer with their 2 kids crossing into the border into Tijuana. Now, there's a very high probability it's them, said Sheriff's Homicide Lieutenant Dennis Brugos. Detectives showed the video to the family members, and some recognized the white jacket that the woman is wearing as to be Summer's, but other family members weren't sure because of the poor quality of the video. So it's kind of like Bridge Guy. We can't really tell who this guy is. Right. Some people say it looks like so-and-so. Some people don't. They don't agree. Because the video, as Mike McStay at the time said, it's very grainy, overshadowed. There's no definition to shape. But the one thing that blows my mind in looking into this case, you have a family at 7 p.m. on this video crossing into Mexico on foot. So you park your walk through the border on foot. Keep in mind, when you walk through the border, it's not like walking out of Lincoln Tunnel in New York City. It's walking into a desolate area. It's a long haul to get to the cities. And remember, this is 2010. It's not like Ubers were ready to go. Right. Taxis aren't sitting at the border because most people travel over the border exactly. There are some people that do use the pedestrian gates, but you would think that a man who's got his wife with him at 7 p.m. walking into Mexico would probably not occur if he has a small children. Now, Lauren and I, we might walk into Mexico, but if you're
probably
with your family, if you're with your family, you're going to travel in your vehicle, which is why this is very odd to a lot of family members. Why would Joseph do this with his family? He loved his family. He was protective of his family. I just find it very odd in this case.
Well, since their disappearance, investigators said the McStays hadn't used their bank accounts, credit cards, or cell phones. Now, assuming the family had walked into Mexico, Lieutenant Brugos theorized they could be down there on their own volition and just wanted to drop out for a while. That's one theory, he said. Or they could have gone down there for the evening and gotten into a situation they couldn't get out of. Detectives soon found other evidence suggesting the family had gone across the border voluntarily. On January 27th, 8 days before they disappeared, someone used the family computer to email the About.com website about passport requirements for children traveling to Mexico. The month before that, Summer was looking into purchasing Spanish language software.
Well, and it also could be that maybe they were planning on traveling there. So she was prepping. So I don't think that she was going to pick up Spanish in a month if this is what they were planning on doing. So I find it a little odd because if you live that close, maybe you want to travel there. If you move next to a lake, you probably want to look into buying a boat.
Right.
That's why I think that maybe that's why that transpired. So at this point, family members weren't convinced. First off, they said Joseph wouldn't abandon his teenage son from an earlier marriage that Lauren and I spoke about earlier. His name is Jonah, and he lived with his mom in North County. And who leaves their pets, 2 vehicles, $100,000 in bank accounts, a life without saying why and without saying goodbye? So why do you just up and leave and don't say goodbye to anybody and leave all that behind? If you do, there's a really good reason or a very scary reason. And this is where the problem a lot of the family members are having with this situation. Because neither Joseph nor Summer McStay were fluent in Spanish, and Summer McStay's passport was expired. So how are you going to go into Mexico with an expired passport? She was trying to learn Spanish, but unless it's a really good Rosetta Stone, she didn't learn it in a month. They also did not have their youngest son's birth certificate, which would be required for reentry in the United States, which is required by minors that are under the age of 16 because it was with one of the grandmothers.
So there's a lot of what the heck
Exactly.
going on here.
It's very mysterious as to what's going on right now. We have a vehicle that's parked by the border. We have a video of a family trying to cross the border. We don't have the right credentials. We have a pretty happy life, a great family unit, a marriage that we know of on the surface of just an average marriage.
His business is doing well.
Yeah, she sells real estate. She's a real estate agent, so they're doing good. They're making money. I mean, they're not blowing the doors off of stuff, but they're building a great life for themselves because they really have just started this. It's a fresh move. It's almost like a fresh start. So where are we at right now? So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay, and we are back, jumping right back into the case of the McStay family. By March 30th of 2010, the FBI had joined the investigation, and so had citizen sleuths. Some theorized the family had gone into witness protection. Detectives developed another theory. The family went into Mexico on purpose, and something bad happened. That would explain why there had been no sign of them. What it doesn't explain is the 4-day gap between the disappearance and the video of 4 people crossing into Mexico. Now remember, they disappeared on February 4th, but the video of the family going into Mexico was on February 8th. So where were they for those 4 days? We have not discovered any evidence leading us to believe a crime has occurred thus far. Lieutenant Glenn Gianantonio told the San Diego Union Tribune, "There has been no evidence to show us that the disappearance is anything other than a family being missing of their own free will."
Yeah, never mind all of the other mysterious circumstances surrounding it, but yeah, sure, they left on their own free will. Okay, so now we're into May in 2010, and a tip comes in from Baja, California. Someone claimed to have seen the McStay family dining in a restaurant and accurately described even a birthmark on Joy McStay's forehead. But 7 investigators went down there and they find nothing. So at least they're following up on leads. This is always a good sign when they're still trying to follow up because that means they haven't forgotten what's going on here. And on June 19th of 2010, the McStay family mystery was featured on America's Most Wanted, which generated about 10 new leads, but none of those leads panned out. Patrick McStay, who has been painstakingly combing through his son's emails for leads, informs detectives of suspicious activity by a business partner, Chase Merritt, but the possible lead turns into a dead end.
Now, Patrick McStay is Joseph McStay's father.
Yeah, he has worked diligently since the beginning trying to figure out what's going on. Now, he lives in Texas. So all the information he's getting is from basically Summer's family, his Joseph's older brother Michael. He's getting information the best that he can, but yet he's still trying to delve into this case and do as much as he can remotely from Texas.
Okay. Well, the case ended up going cold. The family home had gone into foreclosure, and their extended family removed all of their belongings. A new family moved into the home. There is virtually nothing happening in the case for over 3 years. But on April 9th, 2013, Based on surveillance video captured at the border crossing, San Diego Sheriff's Department investigators announced that the McStay family had left for Mexico voluntarily. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department said that it pursued hundreds of leads to find Joseph and Summer McStay and their 2 young sons, and the investigation was being turned over to the FBI due to the agency's experience working outside the United States.
So at this point, they're convinced that they're no longer in the United States.
They're convinced that the family just literally got up one day and went to Mexico and never came back.
Now the sheriff's office is saying FBI's got it.
We're done.
We're done.
But on November 11th of 2013, a motorcyclist or dirt bike who was off-roading in the Mojave Desert found 3 sets of human remains buried in a shallow grave near Victorville, California, more than 100 miles from the McStay family home. The very remote location of the gravesite was approximately 50 yards from the nearest road. When investigators began to analyze the bone, they came across another set of remains in another shallow grave about 6 to 8 feet away. Investigators said they believed the remains were that of 4 people, and it appeared that the remains had been there for an extended period of time. Also buried with the remains was a 3-pound Stanley sledgehammer. Forensic investigators, including an anthropologist, worked through the day and night uncovering the 2 grave sites. Through dental records, officials identified the 2 adult bodies as Summer and Joseph McStay. Investigators said that 2 additional bodies were believed to be those of the couple's sons, Joseph Mateo and Gianni. When asked if the McStays may have been the victim of Mexican cartels, which was one of the bigger theories surrounding the disappearances, San Bernardino County Sheriff John McMahon said, "It's too early to tell if it's cartel-related or any other suspects."
One of the things to note that a lot of the people were saying at this time was there's no reason that if they went into Mexico for the cartels to kill the McStay family and then bring them back over to the United States. So if in fact they were in Mexico and they were handled by the cartels, they would have been in Mexico because it's much easier to dispose of human remains in Mexico than it is the United States. So this was one of the things that really hindered this theory of the Mexican cartels, because the cartel is not going to go out of their way to try to hide a body in the United States when they can just leave it in Mexico and not have to face any repercussions from the American government. So that's one of the things that kind of deterred this whole theory. So on November 22nd of 2013, the California Department of Justice DNA lab notified the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department Coroner Division that the other 2 sets of remains that were found had positively been identified as 4-year-old Gianni McStay and 3-year-old Joseph Mateo McStay. This is awful.
The deaths were ruled a homicide, and San Bernardino County authorities said they believed the family died of blunt force trauma inside their home, but declined to discuss specifics of the death or a motive. Now, I think it's strange that they believe that the family was killed by blunt force trauma, but when they initially searched the home, they reported no signs of any struggle.
Exactly.
Now, they believe the sledgehammer that was found buried with the bodies was the murder weapon. Can you imagine 4 people being murdered by blunt force trauma by a sledgehammer inside a home and not a single drop of blood being found? I mean, was the killer extremely neat and clean? Did they clean up afterwards? Did the cops not do a thorough investigation? I mean, did they even use luminol?
Well, one of the things that they did mention was that some of the rooms had been repainted, but they were in the process of remodeling the home, and they had some people over there that had repainted the rooms, but they couldn't tell if the fresh paint was from one that was repainted or if maybe there was some foul play that had just been covered up. But remember...
But luminol will shine through paint.
Exactly, thank you. Exactly, that's what I was getting at is, so they weren't sure, and that's the part that I find odd is, okay, so like Lauren said, why didn't they use luminol? Was luminol even used? Because you would have some idea.
Well, in all my research, I never read anything about them using luminol, and the house was actually never ever even sealed off and declared a crime scene.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, only a couple weeks after the disappearance, Joseph's brother Michael allowed the media inside the home for a tour. And I just have a hard time wrapping my head around this. Okay, so your family's missing. The home is a potential crime scene, but you're going to give the media a tour of the home. What?
Yeah. That's what I mentioned earlier, is he was saying, look, I talked to the detectives. They said that I can do whatever I want because it's not a crime scene. They hadn't, they said, go ahead and do whatever you want.
Somebody somewhere dropped the ball on this.
Now, at this time, the San Bernardino County Sheriff John McMahon said the killings appeared to be extremely orchestrated and carried out by more than one person. So now we don't have a crime scene at a home. We have a sledgehammer that was found with the full remains, but we were sure that it happened in the home and they were killed by blunt force trauma in the home. But we have no sign of this. But now we know it's more than one person, and we know it was extremely orchestrated. Okay, this is why I'm saying I'm losing a little bit of faith in the things that I'm hearing from the sheriff's department at this point. But as the investigation evolved and detectives started looking into those who associated with the family, one person in this whole thing stuck out, and that was Chase Merritt. Remember, this was the business partner. He was a metal worker, and he was a business partner of Joseph McStay. Now remember, he was the last person to receive a phone call from Joseph on the evening the family disappeared. He also saw Joseph that day. He says that they went and had lunch. Now, one thing that he mentioned in the documentary thing that I was looking at was she said, are you sure you're the last person to see him alive? He goes, I can guarantee you I was the last person to see him alive, which I found to be odd. And if you find that documentary, he says it. He's adamant about he says, well, yeah, he spoke to a few other people on the phone, but I'm quite certain I'm the last person to see him alive. And when he said that, even though he kind of seemed like a regular guy, he seemed a little weird, but just a normal average person during the interview. And even later on, the lady that interviewed him was like, to find this out now blew me away because he was such a regular guy. And of course, like I said, they had lunch that day, and he specifically said, I'm the last person to see him alive. And days after the McStay bodies were discovered, Merritt was taken aside and interviewed by the online tabloid Daily Mail, which quoted Merritt as saying, I was the last person Joseph saw. I think, was it the Daily Mail?
The Daily Mail, yes.
Yeah, the Daily Mail. He came to Rancho Cucamonga on February 4th to talk to me about a huge business deal that we had going in Saudi Arabia. We met for an hour and a half for lunch. He was so excited. We had the Saudi Arabian project and a few other things going on. The business had never been doing so good, and we were looking forward to the future. He did nothing to suggest that there was anything wrong. We both left and went home, and I spoke to him on the phone about 2 or 3 more times on his drive back to Fallbrook, all standard business stuff, and the last time I spoke to him was around 6 o'clock. Now, court records show Merritt is a 2-time ex-con with a criminal history that includes burglary, grand theft, petty theft, receiving stolen property, criminal trespass, and several arrest warrants. So now it's starting to come to light that this guy is maybe not the best person you want to be in business with.
Right.
Which I got a feeling that Joseph McStay probably was not aware of at any time. Because Joseph, I don't think, would have been involved, but then you don't know. Now, Merritt's most recent felony conviction was in 2001. Court records showed that he admitted to stealing $32,000 worth of welding and drilling equipment from San Gabriel Valley Ornamental Iron Works in Monrovia, California. And Merritt violated probation several times in subsequent years and failed to appear in court on numerous occasions, resulting in his probation period being extended and at least 7 warrants being issued for his arrest between 2001 and 2010. This is just not
a great guy.
Thank you. Now, Merritt also at one time lived at a couple different addresses in Apple Valley, California, near Victorville, California, and less than 10 miles from where the bodies were discovered. So he is familiar with this area and probably would know, like this vast empty area that's usually not traveled by a lot of people or wouldn't be known by, passerbys. Merritt was not immediately named by law enforcement as a suspect in the McStay murders, and Patrick McStay insisted his son trusted Merritt as a business partner. So obviously, like I said, Joseph probably never had anything ill to say because he was not aware of any of this information. I have faith in Chase because I have faith in my son. I believe that Joseph McStay trusted Chase and believed in Chase. This is what Patrick McStay said. Do I think Chase is involved? I don't think so, and I truly hope not. So here we are. I mean, I firmly believe that Joseph McStay had no idea of just how awful this human was.
Well, on November 5th of 2014, almost a year to the day after the bodies of the Mcstay family were found, Chase Merritt was arrested and charged with the murders. The arrest was announced on November 7th. When asked whether there was a break in the case that cast suspicion on Merritt, investigators said there was no, quote, smoking gun. Investigators said they reviewed evidence provided by the San Diego County Sheriff's Department that led to the arrest. Authorities also said that they could not discuss a motive for the slayings. Sergeant Chris Fisher of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department said Merritt is believed to have acted alone.
Oh, so he's believed to be acted alone, but yet we're sure that there was more than one person?
Yes, there's a lot of things going on here that are kind of boggling my mind.
But I think it's all starting to sort of unravel at this point. So let's take a quick break and then we'll come back with the rest of the story.
And we're back and jumping right back into it. Prosecutors allege that Merritt was a gambling addict, heavily in debt, and killed the Mcstay family for financial gain, writing multiple checks exceeding $21,000 on Joseph McStay's online business account, beginning the day after the family was last seen alive and continuing through February 8th of 2010. A detective testified the checks were written to Merritt on McStay's business accounting software. They were written after the family disappeared, but were backdated to February 4th of 2010. The checks were printed but deleted from the software. They were deposited into an account Merritt set up on February 3rd. When asked about the checks, Merritt offered no explanation or gave no conflicting stories, a detective testified. He had also reportedly owed Joseph McStay $42,845.
Some underlying stuff here because from other people who worked for Joseph McStay, or worked with him rather, they said that Chase Merritt would constantly come to him and say, hey, could I get an advance of $2,000? Hey, can I get $3,000? You can just take it out of our next check. So he was constantly, this is where this money sort of originated, the $42,845. And I think how they got this number was documentation that Joseph was keeping because Merritt would come to him and try to get money and say, just take it out of the next check. But then he, so constantly kept adding up and then adding up. And of course, Joseph would he was constantly helping him out. So they realized that Merritt was kind of taking advantage. And a few other things, as if there was a job that was messed up, Joseph would pay to get it fixed. And because Merritt was one helping build the fountains, and if something was wrong, Joseph would have to pay to correct the problem, but Chase would get his full pay. And so that was kind of where a lot of this came into play.
Well, Merritt would patronize Indian casinos in Temecula and San Bernardino and the Commerce Casino near Los Angeles, dropping thousands of dollars, authorities said. Merritt's DNA was also found in the family's vehicle on the steering wheel and gear shifter. Other evidence connecting Merritt to the crimes included 5 calls he made from his cell phone on February 5th, 2010, one day after the family was last seen alive. Now, these phone calls, these pinged to a tower in Victorville, near where the victims were buried.
Really? I didn't see that in there.
Yeah.
So they did ping his cell phone, so they could kind of...
So he made 5 phone calls that pinged off a tower in Victorville, near where the victims were buried.
So they
near also where he used to live, an area that he was familiar with.
So that would kind of put him at the scene of the bodies.
The day after they went missing, yes.
Okay. Maybe he went back to bury the rest or maybe hide the sledgehammer that they found.
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, on June of 2015, California Judge Michael A. Smith determined that there was sufficient evidence to try Charles Chase Merritt on 4 counts of murder for the bludgeoning deaths of Joseph and Summer McStay and their 2 young boys.
One after another, half a dozen detectives and FBI agents took the witness stand in San Bernardino Superior Court to provide details of the family's violent end. Sheriff's detectives testified that, given the extent of the injuries inflicted on the McStay family, they believed the victims were tortured before they died, beaten repeatedly in the head, legs, arms, and torso. A 3-pound Stanley sledgehammer found with the bodies, investigators believed it came from the family's home in Fallbrook. Now again, this I can't wrap my head around that they were tortured, beaten repeatedly in the head, legs, arms, and torso, but the house wasn't a crime scene.
I find that to be so. I even said to you, Lauren, how in the hell does this happen? And I said he had to force them out of the home somehow. He either scared them out,
or he killed them in the home and dragged them out of the house.
But how do you kill them in the home? But think about this. You're going to kill them in the home. You have to get them in the car and then drive away. I mean, so you got a short amount of time to do that based on the phone calls and when the car was leaving the cul-de-sac. It's really so confusing because they're convinced that it happened in the home, but I'm not 100% sure that it did. I think that he forced them out of the home somehow.
Well, Joseph and Summer's skulls had been smashed multiple times. The boys' skulls were fractured as well. Gianni's as many as 7 times, according to the testimony. Joseph had a broken leg and rib. He was tied with an extension cord and wrapped in a futon cover taken from the Fallbrook house, a detective testified. So Merritt went ahead and pled not guilty on all charges.
This man's a monster. How do you kill small children? How do you beat a small child to death? Well, unfortunately, at this point, Merritt's trial was delayed several times as he repeatedly fired his attorney or he attempted to represent himself. By February of 2016, he had gone through 5 attorneys, and Merritt said he wanted to represent himself for 2 reasons. He said he only has 6 to 8 months to live due to congestive heart failure, and he could not afford his own attorney. Now, obviously, remember, if you can't afford to hire a lawyer, one would be appointed to represent you in a court of law. So the San Bernardino judge said Merritt could act as his own attorney if he wanted to. Hey, go ahead. Knock yourself out.
The trial finally began on January 7th of 2019 in a San Bernardino court. Merritt's attorneys said Merritt and Joseph were best friends and investigators overlooked another possible suspect. So obviously he had another attorney at this point by the time the trial finally began.
Well, he realized that he can't cover. He can't try
and he's still alive. I mean, they said that he only, in 2016, he said he only had 6 to 8 months to live. But
sympathy from the jury, probably.
Here we are in 2019. He's got a new lawyer and he's still alive.
And unfortunately, he's still alive.
So, okay, what I was saying, Merritt's attorneys said that Merritt and Joseph were best friends and investigators overlooked another possible suspect. They said the evidence doesn't add up, noting there was no sign of an attack inside the family's house. But the state had evidence that revealed that Joseph had lent Merritt money to cover a gambling debt prior to the family's disappearance. Merritt reportedly owed over $30,000 to McStay, along with more than $20,000 in back taxes. The man, while claiming to be Joseph's best friend, was forging checks from Joseph's business, taking money from him, the prosecutor said during trial, according to KGTV. His DNA was found in the family's vehicle, despite Merritt swearing he had never even been in the car. His cell tower pings near the gravesite of the day that the family vanished. I mean, all of this is sort of stacking up against Chase Merritt.
Exactly. You know, it gets to be so confusing because there's so many different aspects to this, but fortunately for us and the McStay family, rather, Merritt, it's basically working against him. I mean, all this stuff is pointing directly at him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're basically you're done. You know, the jig is up, so to speak. Your goose is cooked, as far as I'm concerned. And on June 10th of 2019, a San Bernardino County jury found Merritt guilty of murdering the McStay family. And on June 24th, the jury recommended that Merritt be sentenced to death.
San Bernardino County Superior Court Judge Michael Smith upheld the jury's recommendation of death on January 21st of 2020. Following a 2-day sentencing hearing that included a flurry of last-minute motions from Merritt and his lawyers, who accused prosecutors of misconduct, Merritt's earlier attorneys of incompetence, and tried to remove the judge himself from the case. All of the motions were denied. Judge Smith ordered Merritt transferred to San Quentin State Prison until an execution date is scheduled, and that is where he remains to this day.
Yeah, so apparently the congestive heart failure, which seems like
I think it was kind of bullshit.
It was a drastic attempt to get sympathy from the jury, I'm sure. I mean, remember,
or the courts. He wasn't even like in front of a jury when he was claiming that.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. So I think that's just probably one of the things that they do to try to get, a little bit of sympathy out there. One of the things that gets me is here's a man who basically relied on Joseph McStay to provide him with employment, and they were doing a good thing. They had good accounts going, and even by his own admission when he was being interviewed by the documentary team, or the news team rather, here he is. They're talking about this account which could basically bring them $1 million, this Saudi Arabian account that they were talking about, the fountain account. Why would you want to do that? I mean, here you've got all this financial troubles. Here, this guy was your ticket to growth, your ticket to be out of this financial disaster you found yourself in. I mean, if you could get this account, you did your job right. But, unfortunately, a gambling addiction is like a drug addiction. Once you get deep into it, it's tough to get out. And, sadly, in this case, the only people that really were affected were the Mcstay family. I mean, they lost their brother, son, it's awful because you got this monster who could take it upon himself to murder and just beat to death this entire family and then sit in front of a court and pretend like he didn't do it. And that's where I find myself, just devastated in this case. You got children in this case. I mean, and the adults, but again, the victims are also all the family around it. I really feel for Joseph's father, Patrick, because he worked so hard to try to find the killer, and he swore that Chase was not the killer. And just imagine that all the faith that he put into this guy, and then to have that rug ripped right out from underneath him. I mean, it was kind of like a double sword for this poor guy.
Yeah.
So
it's terrible.
Yeah. Well,
it's a crazy world we live in these days, and you really just have to be careful who you allow into your circle. Exactly.
Unfortunately, this was a business thing, and unfortunately, the business thing became personal, and so therefore it cost the Mcstay family their lives.
Yep.
So I guess that's going to do it for tonight, Lauren. Is there anything else you want to add?
No. Just again, if you'd like to support the show, please subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALMAHAWK Media. You can also support the show by going to our website, paradiseafterdark.com, and leaving us a tip in the tip jar.
And check out our website again, like Lauren said, for links to all our social media, our Patreon merch store, and much, much, much more.
And once again, we want to remind everyone we will be at CrimeCon 2022 in Vegas, April 30th to May 1st. If you haven't bought your ticket yet, go to crimecon.com, buy your ticket, and use code PARADISE for 10% off.
And thank you, everyone, so much for listening
to Paradise After Dark.
Dark, dark, dark.